Hi everyone, welcome to today's episode of Flat Tire Dan. As always, I want to start by thanking everyone who has found our YouTube channel, Flat Tire Dan, and has subscribed and liked and viewed and shared and commented on our episodes. Thank you very much. We really do appreciate it. And before we get started today, I want to touch on a couple things real quick. It's been a little while since we've created an episode, about a month or so. Triton and I decided to take a little time off and enjoy the holidays, decompress a little bit, visit some family, and it was great. We really enjoyed it. But we're back at work now, and we're going to have some content for you coming up, including today's episode. Another thing, I have seen and read and heard the comments concerning a desire to have more off-road content. And actually, I have been creating some of that and just kind of storing it up because I want to get enough content to make like a real episode out of it. Actually, my machine's in the shop. It's having some warranty work done, but I get that back this week. And a good buddy of mine is actually, his new machine is arriving this week, so him and I are going to make a real effort to get out and create some more content. So I have heard you, and we do have some plans for that. And welcome to my living room. It's a little gray and cold outside today, so the garage doesn't lend to good recording and good lighting and that kind of stuff. So we decided to move inside. For those of you who have seen the episode that we did about the Sears Craftsman homes, and that you could order them out of a Sears catalog, I did take some pictures of my house for that, so you've kind of seen it already. But this is my living room, so welcome. Glad to have you. This is Stella. All right, so Stella is a house guest. No, I don't have another dog. Stella is a house guest. She's going to be staying with us for a few months, and she's great. We're happy to have her. So I think that's all the housekeeping I had. So today is the second part in a series that we talked about in the last episode that we're going to do, where we're going to visit 3 individual park systems that are all connected by something called the Perkiomen Trail out here local to us. And if you want to know a little bit more about what the Perkiomen Trail is, we cover that kind of in depth in the last episode, so feel free to bounce back and check that out if you have some interest in exactly what the Perkiomen Trail is. But in this episode, Triton and I got out yesterday and we visited the second park. The first one was Green Lane Park from that last episode, but the second one is Evansburg State Park. And him and I got out yesterday and visited that and did a little exploration and obviously took a bunch of pictures and videos, and they'll be at the end of this, so hopefully you'll stick around to see those. So Evansburg State Park, there wasn't a lot of history that I could really dig up, and maybe sometimes that gets boring, so maybe that's a good thing. But the history I found was that that general area, the park area, and a large amount of area around it, was originally purchased from the Lenape Indians by William Penn, who was a big part of sort of the whole Philadelphia settlement. Back in, I think it was like 1680 something, somewhere in there, he purchased that land, and the reason he purchased it, from what I could gather, was that he wanted to create an area for Mennonites to come and settle in the New World, right? They were trying to escape religious persecution in Europe, and I guess he had some type of connection to them, and so he purchased up all this property and he invited them to come and establish their lives here. And right through this area is the Skipback Creek, and so Mennonite people, at least this portion of them, were mill people, where they were very sort of advanced and skilled in working with mills, and mills are mainly driven by water sources, and they spin these wheels which create power to do whatever task it is you're trying to do, and so it suited what they did well. And so they came and they established their mills, and most of their mills were designed for garments, for clothing and blankets and sheets and things of that nature. And most of the mills that they ran were used for wool. And what the mill itself did is it cleaned the wool so that they could in turn take it and make it into garments, not only to sustain their own community, but then eventually to market to the people, right? to the people in the area. And so it took them a little while to get established, but once they did and they got up and running, they realized that they needed a road in and out of Philadelphia in order to market their goods. And so they built and created what's called Skipback Pike, which is still there today. At least the road is called Skipback Pike. We traveled it on the way to the park. And so, from 17 whatever until now, it's still there, which is kind of neat. And they used it to get back and forth, right? Not much really to talk about between that time and the end of World War II, which was 1940 something, right? A couple hundred years. It remained mostly rural, mostly Mennonite, and the industry was mostly mills. And then towards the end of World War II, the government would step in and help soldiers coming home from war to establish homes here, buy homes or build homes and communities, establish communities and schools and everything like that for their kids. And so that area, as well as, kind of most of suburbia around Philadelphia and other major cities started to happen, right? And so the area became a little more populated and a little more populated, and industry started to move into the area a little more at a time for a few decades. And people started to become concerned about preserving open spaces, where they, obviously they invited these people into the community and everybody needs a place to live, but they were concerned about preserving the open space for people to live in. And so in 1979, the state established Evansburg State Park to preserve the open space around the Skipback Creek in this area. And they were able to preserve 3,349 acres of park space for Evansburg State Park. Realistically, there's not a lot of history to this area. They chose an area where people hadn't settled, but some of the mills were there, and there's one mill that's still kind of standing, not really. It's called Custer's Mill. It was a wool mill. But the main feature of the park is the Skipback Creek, and people used it for centuries to fish, right? And to camp and to explore. And to this day, it's still a very sort of popular fishing spot. It's actually stocked every year with rainbow trout and brown trout, and there are catfish and smallmouth bass, and I'm probably missing a bunch. I'm not necessarily a fisherman, but there's a lot of fishing going on, right? And so they established this park so that people could continue to enjoy that, and the land wouldn't get taken over by the next suburban development. The park's kind of been the same since, from what I could see. It's big in hiking, it's big in mountain biking, a lot of horseback riding from what I could see and what I could read. There's a golf course that kind of comes along the one side of it, and some of the holes are technically on the park. But the park is mainly just for the outdoorsmen, mainly for people that want to go fishing and stuff like that. There are some common areas, and you'll see pictures of those where there's pavilions and there's bathrooms and there's a couple of small playgrounds and that kind of stuff. But the park itself makes up about 26 miles of hiking and biking and cross-country horseback riding trails. I can tell you, as Triton and I pulled onto the park, we're obviously driving through the town of Collegeville, which is sort of right alongside the park. And so that's, sort of a busy area. And then we're coming through some suburban communities. But like from the minute we pulled onto the park property, I was really kind of taken back of how rural it still felt, how kind of out in the middle of nowhere, the whole entrance road and the parking areas and everything in the park felt, and it turned out that Evansburg Park is a perfect example of why I sort of thought that it might be a good idea to do a series like this, where you there's a park there, you've never been before, maybe you want to take a half hour or so ride to get there and enjoy the park, but you really don't know what it's about, you really don't know what it lends to, and they don't have a website, which should have told me something anyway, but like there's some other apps and things like that you can check. All Trails is a good one that I use, which will tell you a lot about the park and how many miles the trails are and what the name of the trails are and how to get to them and stuff like that, and all useful stuff. But as far as getting specific about like what type of environment you're walking into, they really don't say much. And Evansburg's a perfect example of that, because it's situated in a suburban community, which you would think that lend towards families and walking paths and things of that nature, and it really wasn't. It was very, very out in the middle of nowhere is kind of how it felt. The main loop that we were going to hike is called the Skipback Creek Loop. Makes sense, right? But it's only about 5 miles long from what I read. So I figured, all right, there's some other sort of, off the beaten path kind of trails that maybe we can check out for a little bit, because on a good day, Triton and I can hike 6, 7, 8 miles, And so we checked out these other trails first, and they were exactly that. Like, they were rugged, they were narrow and they were hilly and they were kind of muddy. I mean, I guess it's just that time of year right now. And there was a lot of horse traffic and stuff, and the people were great. I mean, the horseback people were great, and they respected us and Triton, and we respected them, and everybody was nice. But they were very, sort of rugged, right? And so I figured, okay, when we get to this main loop trail, it's going to settle down some. It's going to be flatter, and it's going to be, sort of better walking conditions. And it was not. I mean, if you're gonna go to Evansburg Park and you're gonna hike, strap up. Like, it is. I hate using the word advanced because Triton and I are not advanced hikers, but it was work, and it was great. Like, him and I loved that, and it was around the creek, so there's a lot of places to access the creek, and he loves to go swimming. You'll see a little bit of that today, but it was a rugged hike. A lot of cool, bridges and stairs built into the landscape, which I thought was really neat, and a lot of good sort of photo op type of stuff. And we met some nice people who actually took a picture of Triton and I together, because I have short selfie arms, right? And so I've been meaning to try and get a picture of him and I together on a trail somewhere, and so you'll see that. There were some nice people that we met. But if you're looking for a very family-friendly park that lends towards a family environment, this is not it. But it's a great park, and if you're looking to get some exercise in, you're looking to get your steps in, you're looking to challenge yourself a little bit, this is exactly that. And we really enjoyed it. And like I said, that lends towards what him and I are all about. I mean, I had just given him a bath, so I had to go through that process again. But other than that, it was a great day, and hopefully you'll enjoy the pictures and the video. Our next stop is going to be Valley Forge National Historic Park. Now, I've been there before, briefly, and it does lend towards a family environment. There's a ton of places to hang out, and most of the paths are paved and flat, so you can visit all the historic monuments. And so that's going to be kind of the opposite of what we experienced today. But that's our next stop. It's probably going to be a 2-episode kind of visit, just because there's a lot to cover. But we plan on hitting that up next in the near future, hopefully. So, as always, thanks for tuning in. We really do appreciate it, and we really are having a good time putting this stuff together. And remember, stay tuned for more content from Flat Tire Dan. See ya. You going swimming today? You're silly. Shake it off. Good boy.
ahead. Let's go. You going swimming again? Biting the water. Okay, shake it off. Nope. All right.